Welcome to the AdSense Flippers podcast. Are you sick and tired of gurus who have plenty of ideas but are short on substance? Worried that ebook you bought for $17.95 won't bring you the personal and financial freedom you long for? Hey, you're not alone. Join thousands of others in their pursuit of niche profits without the bullshit. Straight from your hosts, Justin and Joe of AdSense Flippers.
Welcome to this fifth episode of the AdSense Flippers podcast. I'm your host, Justin Cook, and I've got my co-captain here, Joe Magnotti. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, everybody. How are you?
So, we've got an exciting episode for you this week. First, we're going to go over some news and updates. We've got a bit of stuff about our business that we're changing in 2012 that we want to talk to you about. The second part will be the heart of the episode, and this week we're talking about content, where we get it, how we do it, and the quality you need for your niche sites.
Nuts and bolts, I'm pretty happy about that.
And then we're going to get into some tips and tricks, ninja marketing tips and tricks that can help your business grow and get you where you need to be. So, right into the news and updates, buddy. What's going on?
Well, we're in the final phase of our AdSense Flippers intern position. I'm a little tired of interviewing. I mean, I love it. We have some great candidates, but I'm a little tired. With 2 days of back-to-back interviews, 8 solid interviews, good candidates, but it's definitely a long process.
Really interested. I mean, we got 17 full applications, and we interviewed via Skype 8 people. I'm really excited about the opportunity here. We should be able to announce the person we're bringing out here next week, hopefully, but it looks great. And right now I'm kind of torn because we've got a few that are just outstanding.
We have a tight race for sure, and this weekend I think we're going to take some time to decompress and make our decision. But if you are listening to this and you're one of the candidates, do know that we will get back to you soon.
Next thing we want to talk about is we are moving to a weekly format with the AdSense Flippers podcast, so you can expect regular updates from us. We will be talking about the specifics about niche sites, specifics about the AdSense Flippers process, as well as some more idealistic things about how we run our business, including our outsourcing company.
Yeah, several people have mentioned to us that moving to like an AdSense Flippers university model might help. So I think, interweaved in the touchy-feely kind of stuff like we did last week and some hard nuts and bolts stuff will be really good.
I love how Joe says the touchy-feely thing, like it's this kind of, it's this airy, ridiculousness. No, dude, that's good stuff. People like that stuff, man.
They do.
Staying motivated sucks. I mean, last week's episode talking about niche sites. I mean, it sucks making these ridiculous sites, right?
It does.
But it makes us money, and I love the process, and I love working with the people that we work with to do it. That's the cool part.
Right.
So, basically, the other thing we want to talk about is we're testing a new host.
Yeah, we're going to HostGator. We're going to put all of our sites that we're creating in the month of January 2012 on our HostGator account. I've been testing it out pretty strongly. It's faster than GoDaddy. I think it's more reliable, and I like the cPanel a little bit better. You do give up some of the account executive privileges that you have with GoDaddy, but I think the speed advantage may be good enough to go with it.
Yeah, I looked at it, and I remember looking at Smart Passive Income, Pat Flynn's blog, and I saw him just killing it with affiliate sales with Bluehost. Remember, and I asked you about that. What do you think, man? Bluehost? He's like, no, dude, no.
I think from a technical perspective, HostGator is so much better than Bluehost. We have some customers of our niche sites that use Bluehost, so I'm pretty familiar with it. I just like HostGator a lot better.
Here's the thing, too. We've been using CTR theme. Now, I love the fact that we can put custom headers in there. The sites look much better overall than sites using ProSense. But to be honest with you, they're not cutting it in terms of CTR. I mean, we're talking a significant difference, probably 30% across the board. So we've decided to make the change back to ProSense with some of our new sites starting this year. It'd be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see too. I mean, it'll be a modified version of ProSense. We're going to have custom headers on it. We're going to skin it. We're going to make it the AdSense Flippers ProSense theme. So maybe one of these days that will be available for mass consumption too.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, we're wanting to keep our costs under $50 per site. I think it may go up a little bit with the link building, because we do plan to expand our link building efforts just a bit. We want to test a few things out. We talked to a guy today, Kevin, who was really interesting, talking about building like a blog network, a private blog network. So we might be investing some money in that in the near future. We'll see, but I think he'd be a good guy to help us get that done.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, all these changes that we're making at one time, Justin. I mean, ideally, we'd like to do one change at a time and see what kind of effect they make. But honestly, I just want to see if we make massive changes, do we really have any change of income, or is it just all basically the same?
Well, for true testing, right, you want to isolate your one change and see if that change made a difference, right? But in the real world, in a real business, what we found is generally if you make multiple changes, right, and drastic changes, if it makes a difference, a significant difference, then you can go back and piece by piece figure out which one was the most important. Unfortunately, if you isolate each test for each change, it takes too long, right? Because it takes a few months to really see the difference, and you have to do one change by one change, and it just doesn't work. The last thing, we changed our perspective a bit on, I don't know, I guess house guests, right? We have an intern coming out that's basically gonna be living with us, and I'd say for the last 2 or 3 months, we've had people like in and out. It's like a hotel AdSense flippers, right?
Casa de Justin and Joe.
Yeah, dude, it's cool. I mean, we've met some really interesting people. We've had some really interesting people in the house. And I think changing our perspective of all that, we're not as closed off. We're having people come over, learning about what businesses they're doing as they travel around, inviting them to take a look at our process has been really useful. We've been talking about right now going to kind of a compound type situation, maybe by halfway through the year, getting the AdSense Flippers compound and getting more people living there, working there, building their businesses, related or not, but having us, be able to share ideas and live in kind of a close community.
Yeah, who's the communist now, comrade?
So I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. It'll be a really good test, I think, with this intern position.
And before all you listeners out there start messaging us that you want to come over and stay at our house, these people are vetted. They're usually friends of friends, someone we know pretty well online. So,
buddy, let's get right into the heart of this week's episode.
The AdSense Flippers Podcast.
All right, so this week's episode is about content. So I think the first place to start off would be talk about our providers for content. We started off mostly using Fiverr.com, searching for content writers on Fiverr.com. We've since branched out a bit. I'll give you some of the others. We use iWriter.com, we use TextBroker.com, and we also use independent writers. I'll give you some of the advantages and disadvantages of each and which ones we use what for.
yeah, the best one that I could speak to is Fiverr. I'm very familiar with that interface. It's probably the low-hanging fruit of the content writing world. But it's an easy interface to interact with. There's plenty of writers out there, but the quality is kind of all over the place.
Yeah, you have to dig through it. You have to look at the ones that already have ratings that are high rated. Even then though, if we go with a content provider on Fiverr that we're not used to, there's like a 50% chance that they'll actually finish that piece of content for us. If they don't finish it, we now have to find someone else, reorder the content. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Now, it's not so bad when we have people that we're paying, $1.25 to $1.50 an hour to do that, right? They reorder the content, find someone else to do it. But if you're doing it yourself from home, if you're the one creating the niche sites, Fiverr would be kind of miserable.
Yeah, I mean, just remember in the beginning of the process, we used to do it ourselves.
Sucked, right? That was the process we did not like.
Yeah, I mean, one week you would do the keyword research, and the next week you would be the Fiverr guy. And I remember just absolutely being miserable that week that I was the Fiverr guy.
Now, with thousands of orders on Fiverr, we've come across some writers that we're working with that are independent writers for us now. We found some great writers, primary writers that write for $5 an article, and secondary writers that write for $2.50 to $3 an article. So Fiverr was great for putting us in contact with writers that we wouldn't have found otherwise. I'll tell you though, we've been using iWriter.com lately, and it's been great for secondary articles. We're paying $3 per article and getting good 400 to 500 word secondary articles done for our sites, which has been fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with iWriter or TextBroker, but I do know that like bloggers, some big bloggers out there use iWriter and TextBroker to find some of their content and then like rewrite it and stuff like that. They live on an arbitrage of maybe they're paid to write and they get the actual content from there and then they edit it themselves and put their own spin on it.
So iWriter, the cool thing about that though is I think 95% of the time we actually get the content back. So if you're the one ordering, you're creating the niche sites by yourself, I'd much rather do that than waste my time going back and forth with the writer on Fiverr and them not delivering, having to find a new writer. iWriter's much better for that. So for secondary articles, paying $3 an article, iWriter's a really good deal. Another good option is TextBroker. Now this is a bit more expensive. You can get primary articles on there for anywhere from $8 to $10. Now these are the 3-star writers, which we found to be the most cost effective. We got a $22 article from a 4-star writer, and it wasn't as good as some of the 3-star writers we've had, so I wouldn't recommend spending the money.
That's so funny. But talk to us, Justin, about like the difference between the interfaces. If I'm brand new to the online content ordering world, which interface will I have the most success with? Which one's the easiest website to use?
Honestly, I think iWriter's kind of the most simple. TextBroker, if you're ordering like large volume or like heavier volume of content, TextBroker's probably better, but it's a bit pricier per article. If you look at total value, I think iWriter's the best right now. Just to give you kind of a breakdown, right now we get about 80% of our primary articles are written by independent writers, and the other 20% right now we're getting from Fiverr, some of our best writers on Fiverr, and we pay $5 per article there. Same thing with independents for the most part. iWriter, we get a lot of our secondaries as well as Fiverr, and we got a few independents that work on the secondaries as well. And that's where we need the most, right? If we're creating 30 sites in a week, we need 120 secondary pieces of content. Dude, that's a lot. As we plan to scale that this year, we're gonna need more. My only concern right now is whether or not iWriter can support double that content right now, and I don't think they can, so we need to make sure that we keep our sources open. I would say if you're doing this for yourself and you are doing a bit of scale, you're doing 8 sites a week or more, get familiar with multiple systems in case one goes down or the writers disappear from one, you know how to quickly bounce back and add another.
Yeah, that's huge because having a backup is always necessary. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, then find out one day that the site went down or that they're no longer providing it at that price level, and then it just blows your process out of the water.
Yeah, totally. So now, Joe, let's talk a little bit about our process for content. And what's the main thing we can tell anyone who's getting this started?
The number one thing is do it yourself first.
Yeah, why is that important?
Because, look, if you don't know how to do it yourself first, and then you go and try to train an outsourcer or find an outsourcer to do it, it's gonna be almost impossible. You're not gonna know how long it takes, you're not gonna know how expensive it is, and someone could just tell you, oh yeah, I've been looking for a writer all day on Fiverr. When you know that only takes like 5 minutes.
Yeah, the other thing too, I would say do it yourself first, is maybe not actually writing the content, but the ordering, the editing, the checking to make sure that the quality's there, that's something you should do first. We had a bunch of interviews over the last couple of days with potential interns, and what was the thing that we told them? The first thing they're gonna do when they come out here is we're gonna sit them down with the team leads from the different departments, and they're gonna actually do the process of setting up the sites themselves, of ordering, editing content, right? And that's important so they understand our process. I don't want them doing that because it's a waste of their time, but I do want them doing it so they understand the process, and when we have them work on higher level projects, they understand the intricacies of what our agents are doing.
I mean, that's just how outsourcing works. The most successful outsourcing projects are those that are well documented and the process is managed in the United States or Australia or Europe or whatever, and just the lowest level of the ladder is outsourced.
Plus, you're gonna figure out things that you should or should not do. You're gonna come up with best practices yourself. So you should do that first and then pass that on when you know it like the back of your hand to an agent. The next thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you document the process. So, you can't hand it over to an agent and kind of tell them over Skype or haphazardly like kind of what the deal is, right? You need to have it documented. Write everything down, screenshots if you can, but it needs to be completely documented so they can follow the exact process you're following, right?
Yeah, and we have a blog post on AdSenseFlippers.com about content writing and how to do it. But honestly, you can figure out your own process. This is not that hard. I mean, we're just talking about ordering, getting it back, and editing it, and then you can easily pass that on to a VA. Take screencasts, recordings of your screen, and that makes it very easy for training at a later date.
Just to be clear about this too, is that we don't have a huge staff of writers. We like outsourcing that work. And the reason why is I don't want 25 writers on staff.
Yeah, and plus, it's very hard to find good writers. Sometimes writers come and go. I mean, they're good one day and not good the next. Sometimes a guy in India is great, and now he's replaced by a guy in South America that's even better.
Plus, I want to be able to scale up or scale down without like someone relying on me for a paycheck. With an outsourced or contract writer, we can have our agents hire or fire at will. But I don't want to be doing that with people that work directly and closely with us as VAs.
Yeah, we've gone through the whole process of exploding our workforce and then having to pare down. That really sucks.
Layoffs, man, not fun. I mean, it's the same thing, even if it's a VA, even if it's someone you're working with remotely, it sucks to have to lay them off. But it's not so bad when they're just a contract writer for you. So if you're looking to actually add writers, or you're looking to add basically what we call content managers, here's the best process we've found. First off, hire some VAs to do the writing first. So they are going to be writers. You're going to hire 2 or 3 writers, and they're going to be writers for you. And then out of that 2 or 3, take the one that you think is the most successful, that understands the process the best, and turn them into an editor for the other 2, right?
Yeah, I love this process of just training the top guy and taking him and making him the guy in charge. It promotes a sense of the ability to move up within the organization. You actually get more stuff out of your VA. You'll get a higher efficiency level, and he'll feel like he's really part of the team. He's moving up in your organization.
And they are, right? So we now have content managers that are hiring from India, from the Philippines. We have American contract writers that are actually writing for Filipino VAs. That's awesome. And he or she can hire or fire these Americans at will based on their contract position. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and if you're looking for just one VA and you're looking for a staffing person, we found that Virtual Staff Finder, Chris Tucker's company, is a pretty good place to go ahead and look.
Yeah, we use him, and we know the guy a bit. We've emailed and chatted back and forth. And so we wanted to recommend Virtual Staff Finder, but we wanted to test it out first. So we used the same exact process that they did. We hired them to find someone for us, and they gave us 3 resumes, one of which we ended up hiring as a full-time staff person for us on keyword research.
Yeah, and she still works for us to this day, and she's been great.
Yeah, I think Virtual Staff Finder is a great way to go. It's better than Odesk, Elance, that type of thing. And it saves you the hassle from trying to find the qualified people yourself. Right?
Yeah, just in case you don't know the process of Virtual Staff Finder, you pay them $350, and then they find an outsourced person for you, and then you pay that person directly, and they're no longer involved in the transaction.
So you're not paying a middleman fee.
Yeah. So once you have your editor, Justin, then what do you do?
Well, you can hire or basically have other independents write directly for your editor. So your editor, your content manager, is now building a team of people they met on Fiverr, iWriter, wherever, but they now have a bunch of people working for them that they work with and build a relationship with and trust with that write good articles. Now they're still checking the hell out of that content, making sure it's unique, making sure it's good enough for the site, right? But now they're in a higher level position, and you're able to grow and scale your business in ways you weren't able to do before.
Yeah, and speaking of scaling, if you're gonna do any sort of scaling, reporting and tracking are really important.
It's funny. We didn't do a great job of that with AdSense flippers and our agents, actually. With our outsourcing company, just a bit of background, anytime we have them working on any project, we track everything. We're fanatics about it. We track how many hours they worked, how many of X they did. We get an idea over multiple weeks how many they're able to do per hour, right? And we can see whether they're doing better, doing worse, pit one agent against another, to see how they're doing. We do that on a regular basis. We weren't doing it with AdSense flippers, and we fixed that about 2 months ago. We started tracking all of that.
Yeah, we were doing an okay job of it. We were tracking everything through our fancy dancy huge spreadsheet. But yeah, we didn't understand how many hours or how many minutes it took to one little task. So that kind of roll-up information is really important, and I think maybe we should share our roll-up documents on our website and let people know how to track that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we'll try to get that out in a couple of weeks. What I think is really interesting right now is we have a team for keyword research and site creation. We have a team for content, and we have a team for link building. And right now, one may be falling behind another, and it screws the whole process up. So by tracking that, you're able to see, okay, I'm understaffed in this area, I'm overstaffed in this area. I'll know within a couple of weeks if I want to triple production, how many I need in each particular area. And that's key when you start working with multiple VAs. So the next thing to talk about is the quality of the content. And before we do that, I think we should clarify the difference between primary and secondary content. So primary content is the content that's on the first page of the website. So if I have a site called blueshirtsfordogs.net, that content is going to be about blue shirts for dogs.
Right.
Secondary content are the long tails that we're chasing after, right? It might be sweater vests for dogs, that type of thing. So primary content is generally a bit better than our secondary content, and we hold primary writers to a higher standard than we do on the secondary content.
All your keyword research was done on the primary content too. So although you did a little bit of secondary keyword research, primarily you're building the site around that primary keyword. So you want to rank for that, and the primary content's going to be a big factor in that.
We've had our primary content be about 500 words. We just changed that. We want it to be 500 to 600 words now. And our secondary content in the past has been 400 to 450 words. We're gonna send that to like 450 to 500 words.
Yeah, I think with the Panda update, that's a good idea.
So Joe, let's talk about the things you need to check. When you get content back, when you get the content delivered, what do you need to check?
The first thing is originality. There's so much just copying out there, just copy, pasting, and send it to you, and trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah, someone on Fiverr will get the bright idea, I'll just copy content from eZine articles and send that to them. They'll be fine with it.
Yeah, and not even rewrite it. I mean, just actually send you the same thing that they found on eZine. And obviously that's not gonna work because Google doesn't like duplicate content that's already posted on the web, and they know that because it's in their cache. So if they compare it and they find it to be duplicate, you're never gonna rank for that. And we use a tool called Copyscape. It's out there, it costs like 5 cents every time you check. So you're gonna be doing a lot of these, you probably have to load up your account. But we do a lot of Copyscape checking, and I think we maybe spend $100 a month on it.
Yeah, maybe. We don't spend that much money. And with Copyscape specifically, what do you need to remember?
The biggest thing that we found, we were checking entire articles at a time, and we realized it was passing Copyscape even though it shouldn't, because the content was already out there. So what we do now is we check just one paragraph at a time, which allows Copyscape to go out there and really verify that it is original or not.
Yeah, that was a good catch for us. By checking by paragraph, you'll find sometimes writers will take a paragraph from one article and then a paragraph from a different article, and it'll look unique, it'll pass Copyscape, and it shouldn't. So that was a good catch.
Yeah, and the other thing that you should be aware of is that sometimes writers will put little foreign characters in their content to try to trick any sort of tools that you use. And obviously if you load that content into Word or something like that, we'll talk about grammar and spelling errors later, but you'll pick up on those foreign characters and them trying to defeat the purpose. But you should take a few sentences or a few words, be like 8 to 12 word snippets, and load them in quotations into Google and see if there's any exact phrases like that.
Yeah, you do a couple of those, just grab one from each paragraph, 8 to 12 words in quotations, and you'll be able to see if there are other articles that have the same phrases being used online.
So what kind of things should we be adding to primary articles, Justin?
Well, primary articles need to be a bit more meaty, right? So when you're writing primary articles or when you're actually putting the stuff onto the site, you're gonna wanna have things like bullet points. You're gonna wanna answer the searcher's question, right? You're gonna wanna make sure they go to your site and get the information they need. We use things like bolding, underlining, italicizing. These are things that kind of set your content apart from some other like spammy niche sites where they're just duplicate content. They don't take the time to put that kind of love into the articles, and you're separating yourselves from the rest of the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, if you read a lot online, you read blogs, like anything, CNET, news articles, you'll notice that people naturally use bullet points. People naturally use bolding. So if you don't use that on your niche sites and Google picks up on that, of course they're gonna penalize you for it.
Yeah, or people coming along to the site, they may see it and go, oh, okay, well, it's one of those sites, and back out.
Right.
Where they see that you have good content, you took some time with the content, they may stick around a bit longer and have a better chance on clicking on your ads.
Now the other interesting thing about content is sometimes you can get original content that's just really bad.
Yeah, so you'll have people that say things like, most people love blank. Blank is one of the best things you'll find. If you shop for blank online, you'll find that's amazing. Like, ridiculous stuff, right? We see that all the time though, and our content writers, we've trained them to pick up on it, where if it looks like you simply have blanks and you filled in the particular keywords with just a little bit about the subject, a lot of times writers will have that. They'll have like a really well spun bit of content that just has blanks in it, and they'll fill it in, right?
Yeah, it doesn't really say or do or mean anything. It definitely doesn't answer the searcher's question, but it does pass the originality test, and good spelling, good grammar, and if you didn't know any better and you didn't take the time to read the actual content, you would see that it's just really poor.
So our content managers look for that. They look for articles where basically you could replace some of the main keywords with others from any other subject. And if you can do that and the article still kind of makes sense, that's bullshit. You do not want that kind of content.
So what kind of formatting should we be doing when we create the post on the site?
Well, it's really good, especially on your primary content, to go ahead and use H2, H3 tags, right? Now, your primary keyword is going to be your H1 tag. It's great for SEO, but use H2s and H3s if not for even SEO purposes, but only to like help guide the reader to like different parts of the content that are important. So if someone had to skim the article and they had to find like what each particular paragraph or section was about, H2 and H3 tags are great for that.
Yeah, and those are available right from the drop down, right from the toolbar within WordPress in the editor. So even if you don't know what an H1 tag, H2 tag, H3 tag is, you'll find them right in the WordPress app.
Another thing you can do, whenever you're putting AdSense on your site, there are two different approaches, and Google talks about this as well, right? You can either try to blend or you can try to contrast. One of the great ways, I think, to contrast is to have your content somewhat grayed out. So you make all of the content on your site a bit gray, a bit lighter, a bit more matching the white background, and it really makes your ads pop. So I think, as far as what it does, it makes your eyes a little more less interested in the content and makes the ads stand out and makes you notice them more.
Yeah, and what that will do is increase your click-through rate. And remember, if you're pumping out a whole bunch of sites and you just increase your click-through rate by fractions of a percent, it can make a big deal in terms of revenue.
Like anything else, though, it is something you need to test out. So the last thing we want to talk about with content is the on-page SEO. Now, everyone talks about backlinks. Right, you need backlinks to your site, you need to make sure that they're contextual links, but honestly, I think on-page SEO is way more important than the backlinks, especially when you're going after not as competitive niches.
Well, that makes sense, Justin, because you can control the on-page SEO, whereas you can't naturally control the off-page SEO. I mean, obviously we do it for niche sites, but if you were building just a normal website and you weren't doing any SEO to it, you would control just what's on your website.
Some of the points to remember here specifically, you're gonna wanna make sure that every secondary page or every secondary bit of content links back at least once to your primary page, and you're gonna wanna be contextual with the primary keyword for the primary piece of content. On your primary article, you're gonna wanna make sure that it links either once or twice to a secondary page so that the search engine can easily find that, and you're gonna use that with the secondary keywords that you're targeting. Now, for all of them, whatever the article is, whether it's primary or secondary, you're gonna wanna make sure the H1 tag matches exactly the keyword you're targeting for that page.
Yeah, and that's pretty important because that's part of Google's calculation. I mean, I can't be 100% sure, but in our testing, we've noticed that the H1 tag and the title tag makes a big difference on the article.
Now, if you wanna add a couple extra words to the H1, make sure that the keyword that you're targeting comes first and you add any extra keywords after that, and I wouldn't put more than 2 or 3 extra. Another important thing you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna make sure that you're linking to authority sites. You'll see on a lot of our niche sites that on the primary page, on the secondary page, we'll link out to sites like Wikipedia. We'll link out to other authority sites in that particular niche industry so that we're showing that, look, we link to these sites because we know that they're important. That's part of your on-page SEO, is showing that not only do you have links internally, but you're linking to other people that are important in that space.
That makes sense to me because that's how you naturally write stuff that's on the internet, right? You say, hey, this is something I found that's really interesting out there on the internet. Here's a Wikipedia article about it, or here's a blog post about it. That's the way people naturally write stuff. They don't just write stuff and point to links all on their own site or point to nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't look right. If I'm writing a website about laptops, for example, I might have a link out to Lenovo, right? Because it's an authority site. Everyone knows Lenovo laptops are good, that kind of thing.
The AdSense Flippers podcast continues.
And now on to the last part of this episode, our ninja marketing tips, tricks, and our plans for the future. Joe, what do you got for us, buddy?
Well, I've been playing around with GECKOBOARD. One of our readers, Jeff Mendelson, turned me on to this. It's really a great way to visualize different types of business information, whether that's Google Analytics, AdSense, Basecamp stuff. You can use the plugins for GECKOBOARD and make little line graphs or make little percentage increases so you can quickly see where your business is at besides going through spreadsheets. It also has the ability to connect to a Google Doc, to a spreadsheet. You do have to be a little bit more techie to get that worked out, but we're working on our own Gecko board that maybe we'll release to the public and show everyone where we're at. It'll show us like how many sites we created this week and how many domain names we have and how many visits we have to AdSense Flippers and how many visits we have to our niche sites overall. I'm working on a Gecko board that we can share with our readers.
I love the idea of being able to tell which team is ahead, which team is falling behind, that type of thing. So you can really keep on track of how you're doing week after week after week.
Now, it's important to note that you have to have this information already somewhere in a spreadsheet or something like that. GECKOBOARD just gives you the ability to visualize that information.
One thing interesting, what was the other place? I found out about this recently in Dynamite Circle. Someone mentioned a place you can go and actually do add-ons for GECKOBOARD.
Yeah, Justin, it's called GECKOFUEL. It has different plugins that are not available directly from GECKOBOARD, but that can work with your particular instance.
I'll also mention, by the way, we got that from Dynamite Circle. If you're not a member and you're running a business currently, you've quit your job and you're looking to really expand your brand, you should absolutely check it out. We've met some amazing people in there. It's a great forum for us. Check out dynamitecircle.com.
Our last trick for this episode is going to be a program that I love to use, which I was turned on to by a bunch of Mac users. Silly me, but yeah. It's called FLUX, and it basically fools with your monitor's settings to give it more of a reddish tint as nighttime comes on, which makes it a lot easier on your eyes. I love it. It figures out where you are on the planet, knows where sunset and sunrise are, and will adjust not the brightness, but the tone of the monitor. It makes it a little more orange, and I really enjoy it.
I've seen that, man. I've been looking at your monitor a bit with that. To be honest with you, it's not really my thing, but check it out for yourself, see if it helps your eyes, and if it helps you out, great.
Yeah, I think you'll see a huge contrast when you go back to people not using FLUX. You'll notice the blue and white. It will be really harsh on your eyes.
Well, that is it for episode 5 of the AdSense Flippers podcast. Thanks for hanging with us. We will see you next week with AdSense Flippers podcast episode 6. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at AdSense Flippers, and we'll see you soon.
You've been listening to the AdSense Flippers podcast with Justin and Joe. Be sure to hit up AdSenseFlippers.com for more. That's AdSenseFlippers.com. Thanks for listening.